Welcome to yet another episode on Delight, where we meet, discuss, and brainstorm with creators and entrepreneurs all around the world on this very interesting topic and dissecting the different dimensions of delight. Today, I have a very, very distinguished guest, somebody who I have been a big fan of the brands that he has worked in. Welcome, Tapojoy.
Thank you, Pinkesh, for having me.
Tapojoy, you've been now working at brands like Samsung and Amazon, and now you head up all the products at Swiggy. I guess Swiggy and Delight probably goes very well together in the way you guys have executed. So maybe we'll jump right into the question. A lot of people define delight in their own context, in their own ways of somebody who went above and beyond. Somebody gave me an unexpected surprise. Somebody gave me an amazing value for money. Somebody gave me the awesome satisfaction of using. What is delight to you? How do you define delight if you had to do it in your own context?
I started thinking about delight a year back in Swiggy. So what would happen is I was traveling to Taiwan. The immigration officer asked me, "Sir, where do you work?" I said, "Swiggy." He smiled. I said, "Okay, nice." Then I met an elderly gentleman on the way in Hong Kong. He said, "Where do you work?" I said, "I work with a company called Swiggy." "Oh, Swiggy." He smiled. I realized brands which are creating a level of service, and this is probably what delight is, leave such a strong emotion in their consumer's mind that it is generating a happy, smiley face to any employee who's working there. And I started thinking, what is delight? Now we can loosely say, hey, delight is something which you give something additional which they don't expect. That's a very straightforward way of looking at it. But if I look deeper, my interpretation of delight is something when you are able to recognize the customer as one individual, where you're able to deliver him or her something which recognizes her as herself. That, hey, you like this, that's why I'm doing it for you. You need this, that's why I'm doing it for you. Making her recognized, making her feel special. And any brand which is able to do that is generating that delight.
Very nice.
And to me, that's what probably delight is.
So then there's a good segue into maybe a question that often gets asked, which is, do you have to personalize to create delight, or can you engineer delight in your routine product or service design where you don't need to personalize? So for example, remembering that I need a particular type of pillow at that hotel next time I check in is very personalized. But perhaps leaving a box of chocolates in when I check in, it doesn't matter who I am, every guest gets one that was unexpected, is also delight but not personalized. Do you think there is a connection between personalization and delight where you cannot delight without personalization?
I'll give an interesting example of my wife. So she's a visitor to Marriott group of hotels. She's been their member. Earlier, when she would enter a hotel, in a room they will give her sometimes a box of cookies or some tea bags which she would like. And she used to be happy. That's a delight happening. Marriott group is actually delighting her. And every time she would be happy about seeing this. It will make her feel good. Last 2 times, I think somewhere she filled a form that she is gluten allergic. And she only likes, or she can only have decaf as a coffee. So next 2 hotel rooms she went in, they gave her a decaf coffee and a gluten-free cookie.
Nice.
You should see her beaming. Just that's the feeling. So in my mind, obviously, there are 2 layers of delight. First layer for any organization is just figuring out how do you make them feel special, even though it is not personalized. Please achieve that. And if you can take one step beyond by personalizing it or understanding what the customer's preferences, nuances are, you even raise the emotion even higher. It's the intensity of the emotion. You get to a level and then you can raise it even higher if you are able to personalize it.
You brought up a good point about It's related to psychology, it's related to emotion. And so then the next question that pops in the mind of many creators, many entrepreneurs, many product leaders, how do you measure delight? Is this a measurable thing? And maybe a follow-up question on that is, if you are indeed delighting somebody, is there an impact of that delight measurement also, right? So one is, first of all, how much delight is good delight? How do you measure?
Yeah.
And second is, what is the impact of that delight? Because if there's no ROI of that delight, then companies and businesses will not invest in this process of delighting.
It's a hard question. I think delight is still in that stage where a lot of companies still don't realize its value. That's the first stage. Companies who do realize its value are grappling of whether it is creativity, whether it is science, how much of it is both. At least in my experience, companies that I've worked in, say Amazon or Swiggy, generally put a conscious effort of delighting. I think our CEO, Harsha, has a very good point when he says, you serve somebody well, they'll be happy, but they'll not remember you. You give them a moment of extreme, he calls it wow, you give them a moment of extreme wow, they'll remember you. And in a commoditized world where most and most services are becoming common, if you can generate that wow, next time it will be an emotional decision, she might open up your app. So that's the context of it. Now, how do we measure it? While it's a work in progress, I think 3-4 things that I have tried to do in my team and see if it works. One is standard. Just check the NPSs of your customers. If you're a B2C, it's a customer. If it's a B2B, you start looking at your B2B NPSs and see if that is changing. Generally, NPS improvement leads to more retention, and you can build that correlation over a period of time to say, hey, if my NPS is improving by X, I can expect my retentions to improve by Y. And renewals get better, and that takes care of it. Then you can also start defining the controllables. For example, if as a platform, say a consumer internet company or even in a B2B company, I've defined these 26% are my high value, extremely important customers, because you'll always have this cohortization of customers. These customers I always want to keep, which means if you have to wow somebody, and wow is a P&L wise costly, you will want to wow these 23 or 26%. So you can start measuring how many of these were touched by my delight activities.
Delight campaign.
Like campaign or whatever I've done. And that becomes your input metrics to start tracking if you're able to delight those whom you want to delight or whom you should be delighting. You don't want to delight who's not making money for you in a very crude way. That's the input way of measuring it and tracking it. And the third thing is still very fuzzy, is what we are trying to figure out is when you delight somebody by putting an activity and say consumer score and did we do an activity for them, did we see a 6-month retention? I think some of the organizations like Amazon, what they've built is what is called as downstream impact. What they do is start tracking 6 months, 12 months behavior of a customer, and they can map it to an action that was done 8 months ago, 9 months ago. So when you start doing these econometric analysis, you can start tracking, hey, did the action of delighting lead to a better impact 12 months down the line? So it's still fuzzy. All the organizations are optimizing and fine-tuning it. But once it happens, I think then the dollar impact of delight will also start kicking in the system.
And then you will reinvest back in the process of design, designing that delight.
Absolutely.
I think that's very useful, very prescriptive, and hopefully all the readers are getting not just the emotional connect with delight, but the systematic way of how to engineer that. So thanks a lot, Tapojoy, for joining